Old Mother Mary, and I'm going to give you a multi-sensory story called The Sangha Fairies. I'm sure you're all going to love it. Once upon a time, a very long time ago, there was a family of fairies who you might like to get to know. They live close to the big spooky castle at Sangha. Oh, how did that get here? Look at its spooky spires and terrifying turrets. Our story begins with a fairy by the name of Bartholomew. He was small, curious, strong and true. Bartholomew found a large stone and pushed it with everything he could. Behind the stone there was a small hole. Bartholomew squeezed in just like a mole. Down the passage he got a shock. He came upon a locked door with a rusty lock. Bartholomew felt frightened and sat in a heap. He leaned against the smelly, dark wall of the passage and fell asleep. He awoke to the sound of rattling metal from the other side of the door. It was getting louder and louder and louder. He ran as fast as he could away from the sound and put the stone back. Now he was up above ground. Bartholomew bumped into his friend Macy, who asked him if he was all right. "Are you all right?" She thought he looked crazy.
Are you all right? Oh, yes, I think so.
He was as frightened as a fairy could be, but relaxed with a nice cup of toadstool tea. It tasted delicious.
Here's our toadstool cup, ready for our toadstool tea. But what are you going to have in your toadstool cup? Ours tastes like strawberry. Can you taste it? Delicious.
The next day, Bartholomew told the other fairies, and they went with him back down the passage to the door, even though it was scary.
One fairy, two fairies, three fairies down the tunnel. Bartholomew goes back down the tunnel like a mole. Oh.
They sat by the door that Bartholomew had found, but they couldn't hear a sound. They all made fun of him and laughed and laughed. suddenly, a cold wind blew across the floor, and they heard a loud groan coming from behind the door. They all ran away, but returned the following day. Bartholomew knocked on the door. Knock, knock. There was no sound. Knock, knock, knock. Still no sound came. The fairies all turned and headed for home. But one fairy, by the name of Big Toe, heard a noise and shouted to say so. He'd heard the sound of clanking chains. Clank, clank.
I could hear the sound of clanking chains. Ooh.
The fairies all stopped and listened carefully. Then they heard someone groaning and crying. Who could it be? Bartholomew knocked on the door once again. Knock. The fairies listened, and this time, from the other side of the door, a knock was heard. The fairies crawled through the hole they had made and got ever so dirty. Bartholomew was the first fairy through because he knew it's what he had to do. He entered the room on the other side, but it was empty. There was no one who cried, just a small mouse that scuttled about.
Squeak, 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 squeak.
The fairies waited and waited, but there was nobody there. They left and returned up the passage with care. But they forgot to put the stone back in front of the hole. That night, the fairies' heart sank when again they heard the chains rattle and clank. They heard it most evenings. It just wasn't fair. They even heard a ghostly voice in the air. One day, feeling tired of being frightened, the fairies packed up their things and they flapped and fluttered their tiny wings.